Facing aggression on the bubble is always tough, so in today's video, we are taking a look at a spot from the $250,000 buy-in World Series of Poker event on the Stone Bubble. 11th place gets nothing. 10th place gets $500,000. They're playing for a lot.
Late night bubble action here on the WSOP $250,000 super high roller.
What do we do
I'm
here?
Donnie Peters. I got Jeff Platt alongside of me.
Play aces, yeah?
We got 2,000 more legs to go till we hit 10,000. Can we please do it before we burst the bubble? Come on, people. Let's go. If you're on the YouTube channel, hit that like button. Let's get us up over 10,000. We are so close.
You didn't spread your cards. I will. Don't worry, sir.
We don't ask for much on the YouTube channel, okay? We don't ask for much. That is the currency that I can take to the bosses tomorrow. I can go to Maury and I can say, Maury, look, 10K likes. That's exactly what I will say.
You happy?
More bonus coverage.
Don't play ace king on the bubble, okay? I'm telling you. Very bad play. Daniel son.
Ace jack suited this time for Daniel. He calls the raise from Kabrhel.
Because you are a poker superstar.
It is an interesting dynamic that Tolerine is the chip leader here. Yet he hasn't really been active at all.
So really terrible.
Kabrhel is acting like the chip leader.
Right.
Daniel, they don't know you probably. They don't know you, man. They don't know you. They have no clue you are the poker superstar.
Today's hand features 3 players, 2 of the best players in the world, David Peters, poker coach and coach extraordinaire, and Daniel Negreanu, and one of the most talkative players in the world, Martin Kabrhel. Martin is in the hijack seat, playing 41 big blinds deep with 8.4 million chips. He makes it 400,000 with 10 8 of hearts, which is already, you know, a little bit loose on the bubble, but whatever. Daniel Negreanu, he says, I don't care about payout jumps. He opts to call in the cutoff with ace jack of diamonds, which is perfectly fine and reasonable whether or not you care about payout jumps. And then David Peters in the big blind calls with ace of spades, jack of clubs. That ace of spades is going to be relevant. Let's head to the flop 3 ways on the Stone Bubble.
Poker fans saying,
really
win or lose,
Oh
I'm
my
proud
God.
of Dean
Can't even
Eggs.
breathe, like.
Wow.
Can't even breathe.
Jack,
How is
8,
this
8.
possible?
Oh, how
What
does
kind
that
of
flop? How is this
thrill is
possible?
Is it me?
And it's
Can I
important
look
to
at my
note,
cards?
Donnie, that these two were talking about it earlier. Negreanu will care the least out of anybody that just it's the bubble. Like
Daniel doesn't
you've heard
look
it in the
happy.
vlog,
David,
right?
He doesn't. He never.
Not
looks
nearly as
happy.
ICM conscious.
So, let's do
Wants to win the tournament.
like a bet. About $200. No, 200 euros. Make it expensive for the Romanian.
200, a minimum bet here from Kabrhel. He flops
Bubble.
trip 8s.
Bubble. No. Not like that.
A call from Daniel. Daniel also has backdoor diamonds.
it's
and
crazy.
Peters has backdoor
Playing on the bubble.
spades.
When there is the guy
Again,
who is
how
gonna
does this
bust now.
flop roll off?
It's crazy.
The flop comes jack of spades, 8 of spades, 8 of diamonds. David Peters checks with his top pair, top kicker, backdoor nut flush draw. Martin with his trips bets small, 200,000. You may say, why so small? Well, in general, in multi-way pots, you typically want to bet rather small because usually you don't have a big range or nut advantage compared to the other 2 players combined. Also, on paired boards, you typically want to use a small size, especially when one of your 2 opponents could easily have the trips. And in this scenario, certainly David Peters could have lots of trips. And also on the bubble, typically you want to bet small because you don't want to find yourself all in or close enough to all in. And in this situation, since David and Martin are both 40-ish big blinds deep, in general, Martin wants to control the size of the pot. So he does go for the small bet. Daniel Negreanu with top pair, top kicker, opts to just call. You may say, why just call in this situation? Well, as I just said, David Peters is going to have a decent amount of 8s in his range. And for that reason, even though Daniel has a really good hand, he doesn't really have a whole lot of super nut hands in his range that want to play for all the money on the bubble. So he needs to call with a lot of his range in this situation. Let's see what David Peters does with his top pair, top kicker.
I can't even breathe.
Once again, we are on the Stone Bubble
I do
of this
everything for you, Bryn,
$250,000
okay? I will
buy-in
make it.
tournament. The biggest
Don't
poker
worry.
tournament of
You
the
will
summer.
get your 16,000 profit. You have 2 bullets? 2 bullets, yeah? 16,000 profit. It's not bad for you for today's work. It's not bad.
750.
Whatever's meant to be.
Check raise from D. Peters makes it 750,000. And this check raise here could ultimately save Daniel.
David Peters bumps it up to 750,000, which I think is perfectly fine and reasonable, especially since his range in general should be very well protected, given he should have a lot of trips in his range that certainly wants to put in the raise. This is a situation where he can get called by some worse hands, mainly Jack X, right? And he can also get some hands with some equity to fold, like, let's say, King Queen that decided to bet the flop. So far, so good. Let's see what Martin does with his trips. Rough kicker.
Like, there's a world where it goes check raise like this, call. Maybe Daniel just says, you know what?
Or at the very least, he calls here, but it saves him on future streets.
Exactly.
Time extension.
SD Ugly rooting for the case jack on the turn. Poker fan said D-Negs can get away.
Alex Foxen over here to sweat the action.
They are hand for hand, so
One
hand at each
425.
table.
Wow, D-Negs is going to be able to
Look
get
at that,
away.
and a quick fold out of D-Negs, understandable.
1-4-25, I said. 1-4-25, I said.
Loses the absolute minimum
correct,
again.
Martin then puts in the, call it click back to 1.425 million. He's starting to get a lot of those chips in the pot out of his 8.4 million starting stack. I think this is reasonable enough. I think if I was in this situation, I would have naturally just called and tried to not play for all the money. Now, of course, if Martin does re-raise here and get shoved on, he's going to happily call it off and just presume he's against a bunch of draws. But this is a situation where he does have to be a little bit cautious because David will have a lot of random ace-X, and, you know, the 10 kicker's nothing to be too proud of. That said, he does click it back. When I initially shared this hand on Twitter, a lot of people said something along the lines of, what an awesome fold from Negreanu who had top pair, top kicker, and got away. Hate to break it to all of you, but when it goes bet, call, raise, re-raise on any paired board where the pair is a middle or high card, you're going to be against trips or a high equity draw from at least one of the players and probably both of the players. So this is a spot where even though Daniel has top pair, top kicker, Daniel has a very, very, very easy fold. And if you thought, oh man, I would have shoved it all in or I would have called, you're going to struggle, especially on the bubble. This is a spot where Daniel has a very easy fold and he makes it in about half a second.
I think you said all in. They both said all in, call to the back, go.
Action back over to Peters.
Call.
He makes the call. This pot, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, is 4.5 million.
On the stone cold bubble of the 250K super high roller.
David opts the call, and I think this is fine, good, and reasonable, especially with the backdoor ace high flush draw. I do not like calling it the nut flush draw. David Peters checks with his top pair, top kicker, backdoor nut flush draw, because if it runs off two spades, David doesn't have the nuts, because there will be full houses available. But this is the spot where I think he needs to call. If he can be very certain that Martin would never run a bluff here, never do anything tricky, then maybe you can justify a fold. But I think calling is definitely my default play in this situation. Now, one thing I do want to discuss before we move forward is that Martin talks a lot. Talk. A lot. And a lot of players who are overly talkative, at least in my experience, typically are a little creative at the poker table, but not all that creative. They go talk, and it looks like, or at least it sounds like, they are in the action a ton, whether or not they actually are. I remember playing with one player a long time ago. Would fold around to him. He would look at his cards, say something, think for like 25 seconds, talk the whole time, and then fold. And this guy literally played the top 5% of hands, and that was it. But he would get action as if he played the top 50% of hands. And I think Martin may get some action like this, which maybe is worth all the incessant talking, or maybe not. I'm not sure. Anyway, I'm not sure if Martin actually makes this small re-raise with anything besides a really, really good hand. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. I don't know. But if his range literally is only the nuts, then I think David can let it go. But assuming he's a good, strong, world-class player, as he probably is to buy into a $250,000 buy-in tournament, is probably more than just the nuts. So David opts to call. Let's go to the turn. Before we go to the turn, though, click the like and subscribe button, click the notification bell. Thank you for being here. I know this is a long hand, but it's worth it. Stick around.
Wow, spade on the turn.
Spades coming in. Peters, ace of spades in his hand. I think Daniel just told Alex what he had, and Alex said, wow.
Obviously. Actually, I didn't even like David's raise from the big blind.
Yeah.
And you can hear them talking about the hand. They are mic'd up. The players can't hear them at the table, but we can hear them.
Probably should have just 3-bet the hand. Better with him, because Martin's just goofy. I'm not going to 4-bet bluff me. Yeah, I don't think he would do it to me. If I just make it like 1.1.
My time already?
It's been your time.
Indeed on you. The other player checks.
Like some of it I understand.
There's legit spectrum stuff going on that's not part of the bit. There's a mix of the bit and the spectrum.
For sure.
There's two sides going on. Yeah.
Chewy?
Oh, actually, it is like, I know it sounds really good, like,
No,
but there is like some level.
Guys, please. Thank you.
You?
10 seconds.
You? Bravo. You might be safe.
Kabrhel checks back.
The turn is the 3 of spades, and David Peters checks, as I presume he would do with his entire range at this point, because for Martin to re-raise, he's going to have a lot of 8s, which are not going to fold, and flush draws, which just made a flush. So David checks, and then Martin checks it back. And this is another situation where if Martin is a good, strong, world-class player, he's going to check it back with some flushes, some full houses, some 8s, so you can't very squarely put him on a hand. But a lot of players, if they have an 8 or a jack or nothing, they'll check it back and give up. But if they have a flush, they will bet. So this is a situation where I think David Peters can now perhaps start to narrow Martin's range to be very condensed towards 8s or maybe some flushes. Tough to say though, again, I don't know Martin, but typically when it goes check-check, you can start to remove some flushes from your opponent's range because those are hands that really want to get money in the pot. Let's head to the river.
9 of clubs on the end. Right color, wrong suit, if you're David Peters. Kabrhel's got the check mark here with 3 8s.
Extension.
David like has an 8 here all the way. I think David.
I'm glad that they're not like Bahamas and they actually do let us go between tables. It's such bullshit. They don't. It's just like.
Especially when it's
yeah. The rules for main events. And it's totally fine in main events. I have no issue with the rule.
I agree with Brewer. When there are 2 tables left, you should just be able to walk back and forth like they're allowed to do.
At the other table, because like especially with like swaps, because like now you get people who like text people and they have a huge edge. So like you have to just let everyone walk.
10 seconds.
The river is the 9 of clubs. David Peters has top pair, top kicker. If it goes check-check, he's going to win a lot of the time. Not this time, but a lot of the time. So this is a situation where he has a very easy check. If you thought bet for value, top pair, top kicker is good, in the situation, you are value betting far too thinly, especially on the bubble. This is a spot where David has to check, and if it goes check-check, he wins. If he faces a bet, he can decide what to do.
A few moments later.
Every media member here, too, has been drawn to this table.
Action is on Kabrhel. It's been on him for a little while here.
10 seconds.
$2 million.
2 million.
2 million is the
Decision
bet.
time.
Now, Peters could call here, and he obviously would not be out of the tournament.
Once you get check 2 on the river in this situation, it's relatively safe to assume you have the best hand a decent amount of the time with your trips. And if you've studied the tournament masterclass at pokercoaching.com, you will know that in position when check 2, the smallest bet you want to use in general is something like half pot, because there is the risk of reopening the action, and betting smaller does not justify that risk, simply put. When you're on a payout bubble, you can actually bet a little bit smaller in general, just because, as I mentioned earlier, you don't really want to play for all the money. So Martin does go for a value bet of 2 million chips, which is perfectly fine and reasonable, assuming there are no payout implications. The problem, though, is that there are payout implications. Remember, 11th place gets $0 and 10th place gets $500,000. So you have to be extra cautious in this situation. If I was in Martin's shoes, I think I would have gone check on this river and just played a small pot, chipped up a little bit, had a bigger stack than my opponents going to the next hand, and that would have been that. But I'm going to presume what Martin did was right. He goes for a 2 million bet into the 4.5 million pot. He goes for value. And look, I will say, hello, pay attention. In your games, against most people, this value bet's going to be excellent, because your opponents are either going to call or fold, which is great, because you're never going to get shoved off your hand. But against the best players in the world, they will bluff some portion of the time. David Peters discusses this in his course and videos on pokercoaching.com. So you got to be a little bit careful against the best players in the world. That said, Martin doesn't care. He goes 2 million. Let's see if David finds the call, or if he makes the big fold.
One eternity later.
I think he has the last one, just like to know.
This is 3 for him. 2 and 1.
This is all Martin trying to get in his head. Certainly knew he was not on his last time extension.
10 seconds.
Mullen.
Oh my! Oh no! Woo! Oh my gosh!
Did I spoil it for you? David Peters rips it all in. You may say, why in the world would he take top pair and turn it into a bluff? And by the way, this is a bluff. Again, a lot of people on Twitter thought, oh, he thought Martin didn't have anything, so he shoved all in for value. No. This is very obviously a bluff. If you've studied GTO strategies at all, like at peakgto.com, you will know that on the river, in general, hands like middle pair or bottom pair with the flush blocker, usually the ace, very often in the situation like to check the river. If they face a bet, they'll put in the check, raise, bluff, because they're usually not good enough to call, but they block full houses and they block the ace high flush. Now, top pair usually doesn't fall into that category because it's usually good enough to check and call. But because this was multi-way going to the flop, and because of the rather aggressive flop action, remember it went check, bet, call, raise, re-raise, call, top pair now starts to fall into that category that is probably not good here. David Peters quickly recognizes that. He has a blocker to the full houses, which, Martin certainly could have pocket jacks, maybe jack 8 suited, given he had 10-8 suited, right? So the jack is very relevant, and he blocks the ace high flush. So if you have to find a bluff in this situation, this is exactly it. David Peters is one of the best players in the world. He goes for it and rips it all in. Funny enough, whenever I won my first World Series of Poker bracelet just the other day in the $1,000 online event, there was a hand where I had the ace high blocker on the river. I think I raised ace high and went check on the flop, check on the turn. My opponent bet the river, and I ripped it all in. Slightly different scenario, but a similar spot. The ace high nut flush blocker is a good hand to rip it in if you think it's not quite good enough to call. Whether that be a pair, ace high, whatever it is. In this situation, top pair ace high falls in that category. David Peters goes for it. Let's see if Martin makes the fold with trips. Referee ponies up and calls.
I mean, this is sick if you're Martin Kabrhel.
200 call.
Ace of spades in hand for
6.9 million.
accompanying
4.9 more, yeah?
jack.
Can you bring it? 4.9 more, yeah? Correct?
Interesting.
We keep that I'm alive.
Peters
guys.
here having a couple of things working for him. One, ace of spades in his hand. Two, the jack does work to block some hands that can make full houses. Look at the crowd circulate. Not only do we have all the fans and the media, we have all the players fascinated by this. And Martin lays it down.
David
Deep
Peters!
Peters.
Oh my! On the stone cold bubble of the 250K super high roller.
Four together?
Yeah.
You sure?
100%.
All right, super high roller dealer.
As the saying goes, Jeff,
And David?
ICM is
Yes, sir.
for
Yeah,
poor people.
David, bluff?
Jack 9-0.
Huh? Jack-8, yeah?
It would be
David,
it would be
Jack-8.
sick to have like
David always
An
Jack-8.
incredible
Bravo,
hand.
Daniel. It's your mistake.
But
Because
At
you-
the biggest moment of the biggest buy-in tournament of the summer,
Very nice.
David Peters
nice to me.
absolutely
I'm
in
not
his
gonna play this.
bag on that one.
That is the play of the 2025 World Series of Poker.
it took
Good
me a
luck
while
topping
to like
that one.
I mean, balls in a poker tournament.
I'll tell you what,
It's so long, so
if Martin makes it to tomorrow,
Nothing?
he better not watch the stream tonight. He might come back tilted
Probably
if
not.
he sees that one.
After a lot of deliberation, Martin finds the fold. This may be shocking to some people because they think in this situation, David would always bet the river with a flush or full house. But that is not true. Good, strong, world-class players protect their checking ranges. I discussed that thoroughly on this YouTube channel. David does check in the situation with some flushes, with some full houses, and once Martin bets, he's going to put in the raise. Martin's in a rough spot. The 10-8 of hearts is not a particularly great bluff catcher, and he lets it go, sending David Peters to the final table with a very nice chip stack. If you enjoyed the video, do me a quick favor, click the like and subscribe button below, click the notification bell, and I'll talk to you next time.